Now, since the dawn of democracy, the way we see ourselves as South Africans and how the world sees us has changed profoundly. From this stems a need to have some important conversations about branding and brand management in both the public and private sectors. That assessment is according to the newly launched South African Brand Summit and Awards, which I'm told will take place in November this year. But the conversations and what the organisers are hoping to achieve, what are those? Well, here to answer those questions and a whole lot more is reputation specialist and project convener Solly Moeng. Welcome.
Thank you
very much. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
So you're contending that the way in which the world sees us has profoundly changed, has altered. In what way and why?
Look, at the dawn of our democracy, we made a lot of promises to ourselves and to the world. We said the past is not the South Africa we want to be, the future is what we want to be. And we told people what kind of country we were going to be. Our foreign policy was going to be led to be driven or buttressed by, inspired by human rights. We were going to take care of all of the people of South Africa. We were going to enshrine all these freedoms that are in our Constitution and the Bill of Rights. We were going to be a welcoming and a very responsible member of the nations of communities. And I think, like all brands, we make a promise at the start. At some point, we need to stop and assess where we are at. And I think, given everything that's been happening in South Africa, especially because we're talking of post-Mandela rather than post-apartheid South Africa, we need to stop and talk about it again.
How gloomy are you? Have we lost all of those fundamentals that you've just listed?
There was a time when even I traveled overseas, people used to look, oh, you're from South Africa, wow, Nelson Mandela, this and that. There was a time when all American superstars used to come here to be photographed with our president.
It still happens to a lesser, perhaps, and greater extent
a
than the past.
lot less,
yeah.
A lot less. I think, and there are also Africans in the diaspora, not only from South Africa, but other parts of the world as well, who looked at South Africa with a lot of hope. They said, this is a country we're going to be proud of. It's going to make us proud. There are many Africans from other countries who've migrated to South Africa ever since, and now they're beginning to say to us, you know, you're beginning to look like the places that we ran away from.
So you want us to recapture the brand narrative. Before we can recapture the brand narrative, we need to know what the narrative is that you're suggesting we've lost.
Yeah, South Africa was meant to be a leader in all fields, all right? In Africa, we were supposed to say no to this kind of leadership. It's not just the public sector. I'm looking at the brands, at corporate brands as well. If you look at a brand, say, like MTN, the troubles that it faced in Nigeria. You see, I want people in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Canada, and everywhere else to say, I work for a South African company and I'm proud to be associated with it. Oh, I studied at a South African university, I'm proud. In the same way that South Africans like to boast about having been to Oxford, to Harvard, and all those places. We can achieve those things if we create centers of excellence in education, in health, in the corporate world, everywhere, in governance, etc., so that people come here to learn.
Don't all brands over time, whether it's a country brand or a goods and services brand, lose a little bit of the luster that you're talking about? It's to be expected. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
That's very true, but there's losing and totally losing. I think that all successful brands, no matter what kind of brand it is, are managed by somebody. No brand grows organically. You've got to have a plan, and this is where I want to take this plan. And like in every plan, you have to stop at a specific milestone and ask yourself whether or not you're still in the right direction. If you're not in the right direction, what corrective measures do you put in place?
Convince me that this initiative is more than just a couple of days of hot air.
It's not going to be just communicating and talking. I was recently in India, working with the Indian colleagues as part of the World Communication Forum. They launched their first India Brand Summit, of which I was co-chair and speaker. And I said to them, we had this conversation that in South Africa we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to have a report afterwards. That report is going to be contributed to be given to Brand SA because they're the official country image management agency. We're going to say to them, we had these conversations. South Africans are saying this. Foreigners who are looking at us from outside are saying this. These are the recommendations. So they're going to be very clear recommendations to say, in the future, when you start working on your country image management strategies, we need you to think of these things too. Because Brand SA shouldn't just be a propaganda machine that put plasters on wounds that will fester anyway. It must also address key issues that really do harm to our brand. And the fortunate thing is that Brand SA has agreed to partner with us, so we're going to be working with them.
You've kind of taken the wind out of my sails because I was going to ask you whether this isn't something that Brand SA itself shouldn't be stewarding?
Well, you know, earlier this year I traveled to Davos with the head of the GCIS, and we had a long conversation. If you've been from Zurich to Davos, it's a very long trip. And I said to him, I want to do something like this in South Africa. And he said to me at the time, I think it would be great if it were a private sector-led initiative.
Why? Why would that be better?
And government will support it. Well, I think it will be more credible if it comes from the private sector. And the government obviously has a role to play. And fortunately, Brand SA has agreed to partner with us. But we're leading this. They're going to support us. They have a lot more resources. They have a lot of, for instance, a country promoting videos that I've seen that are amazing, so that we could use, and some of the research that they've done on South Africa, so that we don't have to spend a lot more research money going into deep dives on all of these sectors.
You're going to come up with a plan, a blueprint. How are you going to hold those responsible for implementation accountable?
Well, we are a private sector initiative. We're going to partner with the government body whose job it is to manage the image of South Africa. They have an opportunity to use us to say the things that they are scared to say to government.
But it behooves you to snap at their heels to make sure that whatever comes out of this is actually acted upon.
We'll keep making noises at them. I mean, they know that some of us are very opinionated. South Africans are generally very opinionated. They say what they want to say. So we're going to say to them, it's not just an opinion of a person. We've got specialists in a room to say, seriously, let's have serious conversations about how we want South Africa to be seen outside. What sort of things do we want brand South Africa to be associated with? Good things, bad things? Are we, for instance, pulling out of the ICC to please the wrong people? Is it good for South Africa? Who benefits from it? What does it say about the image of South Africa? When I travel outside the country, anywhere in the world, I want to be able to say, I'm from South Africa, I'm from that country. It shouldn't be because we were good only when Mandela was around. Just
quickly, how do you achieve some success without being divisive, because not everyone's going to have the same idea, and also not alienating?
Some of the people that we're inviting as speakers, I do not fundamentally agree with. We're going to have very difficult conversations. For instance, South Africa during apartheid was alienated from the rest of the continent. Post-apartheid, when we tried to come in, some people thought we were playing Big Brother, and we've had to bend over twice in order to please our African peers. But the question that we're asking is, to what extent has trying to integrate Africa harmed the image of South Africa as we try to? In other words, what did we have to give up? For instance, gay rights, gay rights. You know, most of Africa doesn't respect gay rights. Do we want to no longer respect them so that the African peers can respect us? I say no. Let's have those conversations.
As you say, a series
of say no.
Tough conversations. The South African Brand Summit and Awards. It takes place in November this year. The convener, Solomon Wang. Thank you very much, Chef.
Thank you very much.
This is Mags on Media. Next, virtual reality is on everyone's lips. We're going to look at two very different brands employing this technology in their respective campaigns.